I started saying shit like, I'm culturally Muslim. How do I get away from Islam so that I could be my full true self? Right. So when I met my wife, I felt like I was meeting Islam for the first time in my life. We know as Muslims that we could do so much wrong, and there's always opportunity to come back to Allah. I still think of Islam as a journey, not a destination. So in my mind, I was like, how do you represent Islam? You don't do it by talking about the verses. You do it by trying to create real representations of Muslims. You tell the stories of Muslims in America. There's so many layers of battles that Muslims are fighting in this country. Some of them are political, some of them aren't. So I wanted to show what they're saying and what they might think or what they might fear about Islam in the same space as actual Muslims.
Can you demystify making a career out of journalism?
There's never a moment where you feel like you have a career in journalism.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Made podcast. This is where real Muslims share real success, and the start of every day really should revolve around a renewal of intention. As we know, all success begins with good intention. So to renew that, we are Muslim Made, and our mission here is to inspire and grow a community of Muslims who want to bring barakah into the world around us through success and through their work. Today we have somebody who is not only a friend, but somebody I really look up to in the storytelling world. We have Aymann Ismail. How are we doing, Habib?
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
I think you were one of the first people I kind of told this idea of Muslim Made about almost 8 years ago, and what a time it has been.
8 years ago.
Yeah, it feels like yesterday. What a time it has been. You've not only worked on an incredible career as a journalist with many different, kind of hubs of journalism, GQ, the New York Post, Slate. You've made several TV appearances, looking good while you're doing it.
Trying to.
But you're also working on this brand new series through PBS, uncovering the deep-rooted history of Muslims in America.
American Muslims.
And not only that, you're coming out with your first book.
Becoming Baba.
So we got Baba in the hot seat.
Baba's in the hot seat.
How you feeling, bro?
I feel like a Baba right now. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah?
I woke up. It was actually really sweet. My kid was like, wakey, wakey. Because we got him like a little doll. We pushed the button. God. This is wakey, wakey. And so this is a good way to start your day.
Yeah, maybe not at 3 o'clock in the morning, though. Wakey, wakey.
No, it's fine. Honestly, even if you're tired and you're pissed off.
Yeah.
If the kid's showing good behavior, that's you feel like you're doing a good job as a
dad.
That's all you really need.
I'm going to quickly tell the story of how we met. I remember that I had this idea of starting a podcast, yet at the same time, I really didn't know how I wanted to tell this story. And to be fair, I really didn't know how to tell a story. So I know I had reached out to you, cold DM, and I was like, there's no way this guy was going to reach out back to me.
Yo, I'm from Jersey.
Yeah.
You're from Jersey.
Let's make something happen.
I was like, Akhi, that's all you had to say.
Come on now.
Yallah.
And I remember that you had said, all right, I'm based out of Newark. I was like, Newark, I go to school in Newark. What are the chances? And you had invited me out to this bakery in Met. And it was the first time in my life
Shout out to
that I realized that journalism was as much of a science as it was an art. I learned through that there is really a framework. It's not all about making this beautiful poetry that really activates someone from a soul. There is ways to get to it. There is a path. It's not all about just figuring out from scratch in the beginning. And it laid the framework, I think, for not only my career in corporate, but just my life about how I approach a story and how I talk to people. So I never got to thank you for that.
You're giving me too much credit, bro.
I don't think you know how dangerous you are, And I remember when you were working on that story or that whole web series on YouTube that I feel like completely blew you up, called Who's Afraid of Aymann Ismail.
Oh, yeah.
That was my kind of crash course into your work and who you were and what you're about. But it's what helped me understand, I think, how to tell a story during the Trump era and everything else. What a journey it's been from there. I want to kind of talk to your story about how you got to that point of not only gaining a really strong following as a journalist, but also how you've been able to understand the secret sauce of journalism, telling a great story, and maybe hopefully telling some advice for people who are in a similar spot and want to become a journalist and want to control how Americans and the world sees us through journalism. So getting started, we begin where all things begin, which is the upbringing.
My birth.
Your birth. The world is now introduced to baby Aymann. Tell me about how little Aymann was like, man.
My story begins long ago, way before I was born. My parents both came from Egypt. They both came from different parts of Egypt. They wanted to just come to America, live a little bit of life, and then ultimately go back, right? They didn't necessarily see themselves as raising American kids. And so I think when they started to have kids here, maybe a little bit of panic set in, because you also have to see that this is like New Jersey in the 80s. And so they were like, holy shit, like this. People doing drugs out on the street. Yeah. The cops don't even show up if you call them. Poverty is really, really, really hitting hard in this part of Jersey. So and also there's like this culture barrier, this language barrier. So they really made it a priority, even though they didn't really have that much money, that they wanted to send all 4 of their kids to Islamic school, which is just for like 2 or 3 kids prohibitively expensive. It is. Yeah. For 4 kids, they were really scraping by.
But that value,
it was that important to them, you know?
And I guess those lessons were so important to them, and they made it work. What do you feel like were kind of like the highlights or the family values and the lessons that you felt like even to this day help you stay grounded from that experience? Because I know for a lot of kids it didn't work, and I know talking to you felt like it didn't work, but then looking back you kind of feel like it did.
I want to push back on that. Like I wouldn't say that they didn't work. I think everybody's got their own path, right? So if you're a kid like me who like left Islamic school and was thrust into society, there were so many hangups that I personally had that I needed to get over. Like, for example, I was scared to shake a girl's hand. I thought if I were to do that, I'd end up like, 16 with a girl that's pregnant. I was afraid of like revealing too much of myself, thinking I had to protect my aura of like a Muslim man. I needed to make sure that I didn't like start celebrating Christmas or eat candy on Halloween. Otherwise I would be compromising my values, right? Everything felt so high stakes. Even eating turkey on Thanksgiving, I was thinking to myself, like, is this halal, right? Which is a lot to think about when you're like 11, 12 years old. And so when I was like pulled out of Islamic school, literally like the day after 9/11 and put into like this public school, all that was on my mind was, how do I like protect all of what was instilled in me? And it was terrifying, right? But at the same time, I owe everything from my life now from that experience. Because what it taught me was like Islam is like this modular thing. And what you need it to be when you're a kid, and what you need it to be when you're a teenager, and what you need it to be as an adult and a parent, they're all different things. And I think even at that time, I was really afraid of losing what I imagined Islam was, which was just this purity, this sanctity, this existence within a bubble. Like, we're American, but also we're Muslim. So we're not going to do all the American bullshit. We're going to do like the Muslim stuff, right? And you and I know this is like a Muslim way to do everything. We got to walk in with our right foot. We got to wipe our ass with our left. We got to like do all of the du'as. We got to say Aymann when we take a shower. We got to say Alhamdulillah for everything. Right. So I was so afraid of all of that, of losing all that, to all of a sudden like using like slang, and I was just afraid, right? But then in the end, finding peace for me in that moment wasn't about like preserving faith. It was about having friends and about like being good at basketball. And so I didn't feel like I needed to compromise anything. And that's when I like really started to open up. And that's when I was like, okay, you could be a Muslim. And then all it means at this point, when I'm like 12, 13 years old, have all these friends, it just means that whenever I go over to the house, I like to say, hey, no pork for me, please. And that was it. And that was fine. But then high school hits, and then I had all this like teenage angst, and I wanted to just rebel. And I was like, you don't know me, Mom. You don't listen to my music. Like, you don't understand me like Coheed and Cambria does. Like, I was just really into like needing my own like space, right? But even then, like my ideals of being a Muslim changed. Now it wasn't that, can I be Muslim and American and do all this other stuff at the same time? It became, how do I get away from Islam so that I could be my full true self? And I wrapped up this need for rebellion with also like this, with Islam in like a very toxic way. And so at that point I had like a girlfriend. It got so bad that I started saying shit like, I'm culturally Muslim. I was really one of those people who felt like I needed to isolate myself from my parents.
So that's something really common in our culture.
I was 2 different people at home, versus how I was with my friends at school.
Right.
The only reason I came back or I felt safe enough to like explore Islam on my own terms was because I had all that experience. And I had saw for myself and felt for myself all the ways that I essentially saw that the grass wasn't greener, that I still craved that connection.
Yeah.
And the catalyst for me, like there's several catalysts, but the first catalyst was I went to like this cultural like potluck with a bunch of my friends. And like all my friends are from some place and everybody speaks like a separate language. And somebody was like, here's jollof rice. My mom taught me to make this when I was like 13 and I make it the same way she does and all this connection. I heard a friend who made empanadas and he was like really into like wrapping it in the same pattern that his mom does and like putting the same indents in it. And he like, she taught him how to do the stuffing with his palm, not her palm, because it like measuring is different. So all of these like connections that they had to their roots. And I didn't know how to do any of that. And in fact, I didn't want to do any of that because I put in my head that I needed to be something else, right? So I brought Oreos. I had a packet of Oreos and I was freaking ashamed of myself. I was like, ew. Like there was so much valuable about all that my parents were trying to instill in me. And I didn't have any of it left to share with other people. And this was like during college and I had this feeling in me that I let go of something that was too valuable to let go of. And so after that, I started going to like the MSA. I went to like the meeting and then I got grossed out again because they were like gender segregating in a weird way. Like I made a couple of friends who are Muslim who were also going through like the same thing. I think it's really valuable to have all those experiences in which you like want to separate yourself. You want to experience life in a different way so that you can have this real, genuine desire to come back to it. Because without that desire, everything is going to feel a bit performative, in my opinion. I still to this day think it's really, really, really valuable for Muslims.
Yeah.
Because I still think of Islam as a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And so this desire or this understanding that you need to be better is Islam.
Right.
And whether that for you, that your personal challenge could be wanting to give more charity, wanting to do more good like you want to do. And like all of that, I think, requires this motivation to return, to do something better, to do something bigger for yourself.
Right.
You know, and in my case, it just happened to be girls.
Yeah. No, you must also like to be able to like, you know, have that on your chest and on your sleeve and say, listen, like I'm accepting of that. And I know that it's the story that, you know, brings me closer to Allah. Like you must have such a strong understanding of like Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, right? Like, where do you think that came from? Was that like that early value that your parents kind of instilled, or was that more later on in life?
Like imagine the most merciful creature that exists on this earth.
Yeah.
And then just be confident in knowing that God is infinitely more merciful than that. More gracious than that. And the fact that we know as Muslims that we could do so much wrong and there's always opportunity to come back to Allah. You know? I think I took that for granted. I think for a long time, especially as a kid, because sometimes when you're like rebelling against your parents and you want to do all these different things, rebellion could sometimes feel like you have to go against God, right? You're not breaking mom's rules, you're breaking God's rules. And that's so much more profound and hurtful, I think, than, you know, like staying up late and like doing something you're not supposed to do. Instead, you're like doing something that God doesn't want you to do. And so I think if you have that consciousness and you have that compass that's telling you to go in the right direction,
right,
that's enough when you're really young.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure I think I put on myself to want to be perfect because I felt like we were told what perfect is. And we have this example of the Prophet and the stories, and we know what perfect looks like. And so you want to do that because you feel like that's what being Muslim is. I think while I was having like those relationships with girls and getting older and all this stuff, I think it took me a while to understand it as that motivation to do better. And then thinking to yourself, man, I really like messed up. I gotta get back on that path. That's Islam.
Right.
That opportunity to do better. And then once I started to see it that way, revisiting the Quran it's like a totally different experience, because then you start seeing like the symbolism of the mizan, the scales, right? And this idea that we're going to be judged comparing our good deeds and our bad deeds. And there's this idea that if you do bad, you're screwing yourself up and you're opening the door for so much more bad. But I really, really loved the idea that there was also this other side of the scale where you can do good, enough good to overcome the bad. And that to me is like, it made me excited to be Muslim.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. And then so much of your identity at that point, like I'm just thinking like as someone who's like 16, 17, you know, this is all going on in your head. At the same time, you've got this identity as like Aymann, who's like Egyptian American, but also trying to find your way around, I think part of like, you know, the 80s and the 90s, which was completely different than the experience that, you know, kids have today. Right?
There was no phone cameras.
Exactly. Right. So like
payphones,
you know, I think you're in a point in your life where you're almost like going into college and you got to start figuring out what you want to do with your life, right? Like how did, what was like the path to like understanding what you actually wanted to do in terms of like chasing your dreams? Was it like that deep, or did you keep it more simple? As long as I got some money coming in, I'm sure.
Man. I knew what I wanted to do when I was a sophomore in high school.
No way.
For real. So in Newark, for people who don't know, the school system is trash. It's like, it's not trash like, oh yeah, the teachers. No, it's like what they do when you get in is after the first bell rings, they lock the doors.
Nice. Not
to keep people like from leaving, but to like keep like other whoever characters around the area from coming in.
Getting in, yeah.
And so the teachers didn't really care. Once you were inside the building, it just felt like they would take the attendance in the first period. And then after that, who knows what'll happen, right? So it was more of like this society inside the school where the bell didn't really mean anything. The teachers didn't really care. So I spent almost my entire year that year in the art room because there was a computer in the back and it had like Final Cut Pro loaded on it and it had GarageBand. But more importantly, there was a CD burner. And so I was like, okay, cool. There's this stack of blank CDs. I can get LimeWire on this thing and I can like burn music and I could sell this for like $5.
Okay.
So I had like so I turned
Egyptian
into
entrepreneurship.
I was turning into an oil salesman. So what I would do is I would go to the store and I would like look at which albums came out, like Linkin Park or whatever, or the Black Album, and I would see what songs are in what order, and I would print out the logo and I'd make bootlegs all day, and then I would walk around and sell them. Totally haram. But at the same time, this is like what got me on the computer.
Yeah.
And this is why I spent all my time in that room, because it was so valuable to me to be in the room with the technology. Because what happened was the art teacher, who also was like really young and didn't really like, just wanted people to be in the classroom instead of in the hallways. So he was happy to have me in the back of his room for 6 hours throughout the day. And so he saw me like playing around with GarageBand, throwing some beats together. And he would just tell me, hey, if you like really want to learn something, my suggestion is you like print out the keyboard shortcuts and you lead them by the keyboard. And then that way you know what the tools are. And so he's like, you should just go one by one and like figure out, okay, what is the slice tool? What is the blend tool? What is the all this, like all these keys, just go one by one and play and like see what happens. He didn't know how to video edit. I didn't know how to video edit, but they had like these sample clips and like I would download stuff from the internet and I would like put these clips together and I was making music videos for the beats that I was making. And it was like, I was like, this is really fun. This is a lot of fun. And I would spend all day just making stuff. And it culminated into like the end of the year when he suggested that a bunch of like this crew that was always hanging out in his room put together a film for this like local film festival. And we were like, hell yeah. So we just did it and it came out amazing. We interviewed one of my brother's friends who went to fight in Iraq after high school, who had a kid, had a wife, and he was like a sergeant. He did something heroic. I think he like, there was like an IED that blew up his like Humvee or something. And then he like ran out and like saved a bunch of people and then like died in the process or something like that. But he went to our high school and we like knew him. So we interviewed the teachers that knew him. We interviewed his wife and we got his little kid on camera and we like made this whole thing about like how awful the Iraq war is. And it won like the festival handedly because we were competing with other students who actually had to go to class. So like we were like sitting there all day, like working on this, even sometimes into the evening, you know, he wouldn't kick us out. And these poor kids, man, they just like made some shaky footage and they showed somebody like dropping trash. And the judges had to decide whether this documentary about the Iraq War versus like this shaky clip of something. So yeah, we actually won first, second, and third prize. We had all 3 trophies at the end and we felt bad because we were like, this is what we do now. So that, I think that moment was so huge for me because I felt like I had power. I was like, I can tell a story. I could get rewarded for it. There's like, people care about good films.
Yeah.
And it all just sort of exploded for me. And after that, I was like, I want to be a video editor.
I mean, even at an early age, you kind of like found your voice a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with. Even as you enter adulthood, you're always trying to find this voice that's uniquely yours and that stands out. Like, what was the journey in those early days of finding your voice?
Yeah, so at this point, I was like into video editing. I go to college. I like wanted to do film, but there was no film program. So I just did journalism instead, just because I felt like they were using cameras.
Yeah.
And so the editor-in-chief at that time was like a camera nerd. His name was Dan Bricaglia. He was just like really into cameras in a way that I was like really obsessive. And so he and I became friends. I was like, how do you make a good picture? He was like, the best advice that I can give you is to shoot as much as you can. It wasn't like I created a new thing by telling stories the way that I did. I just felt like I was really upset with the fact that it didn't already exist for like the way Muslim stories were being told about Muslims.
The way that I looked at it is I just found it so courageous. Like to have that courage at a younger age or in an environment where you knew you probably might have gotten some kind of pushback or some kind of like, maybe you were even dropping your possibilities of growth.
I think Newark specifically prepared me to, I think, focus on this privilege that I have as being able to be in these spaces and communicate freely.
Yeah.
And not be afraid of, people making fun of me or like taking what I said the wrong way. Yeah. So it almost feels like that's your problem, you know? Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people who grew up in the city understand that and like benefit from that because they're not shy and maybe they don't think about all of the ways that people might misinterpret or have their feelings hurt. But we're also considerate. We're also empathetic. We feel a lot. We're sensitive. Not to the point where like we get our feelings hurt, we're going to cry, but we're sensitive to the fact that if somebody actually is like feeling something, we can pick up on it.
Yeah, I think the way that I view that
is really valuable for a journalist.
I was going to say, it's like the way that I feel that I view that is that as if like, that sensitivity is just the ability to not have only one perspective, right? To kind of like open your eyes or take the blinders off to see that someone might view the world a different way because their experience is so different. Their experience and my experience is not the same. Their feeling and their preferences in terms of how they view the world is not the same. So, and I think as a journalism, I think it's really important because, at the end of the day, like you're telling stories not as truth, as black and white, right? It's like, this is this way because this is the way that I see it as a journalist, right? And that's why people come to me because they agree with that per se, right? What was it like in those early days, like trying to make it or I guess trying to pursue a career into journalism, like before you got to the point of launching Who's Afraid of Aymann? What was that like? Like, what did you what kind of hustling or, what kind of moves did you make to, get a foothold in that space?
So for a long time, especially like during college, I was thinking of journalism as just preparing me to become a filmmaker. Because, like I said, like my college didn't have a film program. Yeah. There was a film program, full disclosure, until I got there. Then they were like, "Oh, psych!" They like canceled the program on the first day. But it actually ended up being a good thing for me because then it pushed me into journalism. So because I wanted to keep that muscle, and I wanted to see like how else I could like make films, and if I could make money doing it, great. Yeah. So I got into like the newspaper. That's where I met Dan Bricaglia, the photographer. So he gave me my first opportunity, or maybe my second opportunity, to make money by making films that were like short and snappy. It was my idea. I said I wanted to do a video a day. Every single day I wanted to come out with a new video about something that was happening on campus. And it was awesome because then I got to experience what it was like to be a journalist, which is unprecedented access. Like you can go anywhere, right? But by being a journalist, you could end up in the Oval Office in the White House as a journalist. You could also be like, you know, in a war. You could be, you know, in a place where they make watches. You could be in like the sanitation area where they clean the street. You could be literally anywhere, because everywhere there's a story, a journalist belongs. So I really enjoyed, I think at first, just like the access to everything that was happening on campus, from like the campus president all the way down to like if there was like a performance or something, I would be able to like meet with the performers like J. Cole. I was like, got to hang out with him because
nice. How was
I
that?
got to interview him. He's tall as hell, you know, and he remembered me because I interviewed him twice. And the second time I was like, hey, what's up, Aymann? I was like, I'm friends with J. Cole. I was telling everybody we're best friends. You know, so it's like the unprecedented access, especially for a kid from Newark, is intoxicating because then you get to meet everybody. And then if you just say, hey, I'm doing the story, people who have strong feelings about it will want to share their perspective naturally. Yeah. So I fell in love with how I felt like I had the keys to the city after that. And so I still wanted to be a filmmaker, but I still thought of journalism as like how it's going to help me get there. Right. And so after I got out of college and I did a couple things, I did some small commercial work. I did like this music. I was on set for like this music video for Disney, and it was like fun. And I really got to enjoy like hanging out with people, and I was learning a lot, but it wasn't like steady, you know, like you might get a job like for the weekend and you might make like $250 and you don't know when your next job is going to come. So I didn't really like that. You needed to like really make it. And I didn't really have like a net to land on if things didn't like work out. If I needed rent at the end of the month, I needed options. So I told myself I'm just going to get a job in journalism and then do the film stuff on the side. Yeah. We know how that story goes. But even then, I was really happy to be able to kind of blend the two interests because being a journalist is about the access. It's about the story. Being a filmmaker is about the art. And so for me, it was about trying to put the two together. And that's where you get a series like Who's Afraid of Aymann.
Wow. I had never saw something before that I felt like activated my identity within America. And the fact that you were doing something that I thought was impossible, which was literally go headfirst into misconceptions about what Muslims were in America, or go headfirst into interviewing and seeing what it was to be a Muslim in America at that time, was something that I had never seen before. I was maybe not sheltered from it, but that was completely lacking, right? So the fact that I got to see that and I heard your voice and I heard how you told that story, that really inspired me to say maybe there is a concise, cohesive way and to approach this towards a market that's not 50 plus, right? Like that's like for like people like you and me, right? At that time, like in their 20s and 30s. Right?
So it was interesting. So when I was originally thinking about how to make that show, it was like right after Trump got elected. And so I felt like this was my opportunity because now people were like curious about who these people that Trump was banning. And so there was like this way in. And so I was thinking, how do you access that audience? What are they looking for? What kind of things are they typing into Google? Oh, like Muslims and how do they feel about like gay people? Oh, Muslims and whether or not they tell the truth. Muslims and hijab, for example. Because what the right wing at that point did was make promises to their base about who Muslims are, who Black Americans were, about who Hispanics were. And so I felt like there was this opportunity to take what they were saying about us as a way to generate interest about who we actually were. So that was the first idea. That I was like, okay, there might be an appetite now for this kind of show. The second thing was I felt like I was copying what I was already seeing out there about good storytelling. Like one of my major sources of inspiration was Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. Because I was thinking to myself, I loved the way that he was on camera learning. Because every time I would watch his show, I would feel like I got to learn something because I'm literally watching this person talk to somebody and go, oh, I didn't actually think of it that way. Oh, that's surprising to me. Oh, but he's like actually genuinely curious.
It's so interesting you say that, because Anthony Bourdain is somebody who I would consider one of the greatest storytellers.
The greatest storyteller of all time.
To ever exist.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all he's doing is, you can tell, like, he like writes some notes, but then what he's actually doing is he's allowing his curiosity to steer. And so I told myself I wanted to do, let's just copy him. Right. Allah yarhamu, man. Such a brilliant guy, man. Yeah. When you say things like, oh, you like introduced this thing, or you did this new thing, in my mind, I'm like, I sort of ripped him off. He probably felt like he ripped somebody else off. Yeah. But yeah, so I saw this interest in like telling Muslim stories, because people were being introduced to Muslims in this whole new way for the first time. But also on the other hand, I saw a couple other like Muslim series on YouTube that kind of pissed me off. Like really kind of pissed me off. I'm not going to say which ones, but there was like people trying to explain like really sophisticated and complicated ideas like jihad as being like nothing to worry about. It's just like this thing. It's like, oh, you want a donut, and you like don't want to eat the donut. That's jihad. And I was thinking to myself, like, that's not what jihad is. Don't gaslight people. Muslims don't even think that that's what jihad is. I get the reason behind it. You don't want people to like accept this idea that jihad is like this violent doctrine. But at the same time, you can't treat people like they're idiots.
No, that's such a profound thing that you mentioned, because I feel like at that point in our American identity, we're almost just clinging on to like this like sheep-like fluffy exterior without any history or roots. Like we were leaning heavily into like, let's say, any party that accepted us and that kind of stuff. How do you think the impact of that did to our perception in the US? Whereas like we just like literally was trying to like water down this deep history, this profound, you know, meaning and example that we have from the history of Islam and the Prophet, peace be upon him. Like, how do you feel like that like completely changed our direction in the US?
I get it. Like I know why.
We just wanted people to accept us. We wanted to belong, right?
Yeah, and you want to humanize yourself. Right. So you want to come off as being like, I'm just like you. I like ice cream too. Yeah. Look at me have like this ice cream. And it's like, I didn't want to be just like eating ice cream on the corner and being like, we like ice cream. Yeah. So, you know, we're not dangerous. Yeah. That to me didn't make any sense. And so what I thought was, I wanted to actually take those questions seriously, because I felt like those people were serious. And if you treat people who are serious like they're a joke, they're not going to listen. So I didn't have it in my head like I was going to, you know, fix Islamophobia or anything. But I thought, if we took it serious enough, if we didn't treat these people like idiots or just bigots or just people who couldn't think for themselves, they might take us seriously too.
Yeah. What was your initial goal behind that series, and like, how do you feel like it kind of changed you? Because I think that was the first time where something really went viral for you, right?
No, not the first time. But really? I think my first big piece was about like the Muslim Brotherhood. The purpose behind that piece was specifically to take a journalistic approach to this big question that I always had, and what other Muslims always had, and everybody around Muslims always had, which is what does Islam look like? So how do you, in my mind, like represent Islam as a journalist? You can't. Because every two Muslims who watches something about Islam is going to be like, they're never going to agree. And that's, by the way, something that's like really amazing about Islam. Like this idea that people can read the same surah and will come to it in a different way. And not just that, but the same person in a different phase of their life can read the same surah and come away with it with different understandings. Like, subhanallah. So in my mind, I was like, how do you represent Islam? You don't do it by talking about the verses. You don't do it by talking to the scholars. You don't do it by opening the book and reading it out loud as if like people are going to understand it that way either. You do it by trying to create real representations of Muslims, the humans. You know what I mean? So for me, it was about, how do you tell this story about Islam in America when people are asking these questions about what is Islam in America? Does it exist? Can it exist? You tell the stories of Muslims in America. But I also wanted to center the misconceptions, which a lot of people don't agree with. The anti-Muslim side feel at least partially represented in the story, so that they could feel like they see the world reflected in this video too. Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to show what they're saying and what they might think or what they might fear about Islam in the same space as actual Muslims. And that to me was enough. I was like, if I can just achieve that, we are a community under attack by so many different levels, you know, on like the local level, also like in the spiritual level. There's so many layers of battles that Muslims are fighting in this country. Some of them are political, some of them aren't.
I totally hear you, right? I feel like, you know, what you were saying is it's so much more complicated than people assume, but also there's a level where it's so much simpler, right? Digging into up until that point.
America's work, bro. America is like having no time for anything else.
Yeah. How does that kind of go into like you having kind of like an Egyptian, you know, cultural background and also like an American, like a truly American background, like balancing that, like, you know, are you being pulled towards one direction now that you're a little bit more, I guess, well seasoned in life?
No, man, I love being American. I really do. I don't love every American, obviously, but I love being part of this like experiment in which I can have like a best friend who's from Ecuador, and neither of us are more or less American than the other.
Yeah,
that to me is like the beauty, right? It's this idea that we all like sort of show up and we play and we work and we do all of these things, and no one person is more American than the next.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So I think what's kind of unique in America is like we all every single person is very feels very strong about their own opinion or their own group. And I think historically your work has been more leaning left, where a lot of like Muslims, I guess historically have been more conservative, right? Did you find pushback, or how did you like navigate that? You know, where do you see yourself today? Do you think that Americans coming out of like the 90s and early 2000s kind of pushed us towards leaning more left in the kind of journalism space? Like how does that work, and where do you kind of see it going, right?
No, I don't think that like journalists are more left or right. I think there's different styles and there's different goals for sure. Yeah. But journalism is journalism. Journalism is asking questions. If you're doing journalism, it's different than like giving an opinion, right? So there's bias in everything, and that's why I really strongly discourage people from labeling institutions as being like right or left, because each of these institutions you're going to find a varying like political slider. Everybody's going to be somewhere on the spectrum. At a place like Slate, for example, where I work, I might be more left or more right than certain people on different topics. I might be more left on one subject and more right on the other. But does that mean that like the organization is leftist? It's like, what does that even mean, right? I feel like we're getting into the same space of being like, well, is Paterson, New Jersey, where we are today, a leftist area?
Yeah,
I think we need to. I try to, especially as journalists, we need to lean into our biases. We need to understand and accept our perspectives, and work around it and be honest with our audiences about it, and say, hey, look, I'm coming to this from this perspective, and encourage readers to be like, okay, well, if I really want to understand all the perspectives and make myself least biased, you need 1,000 sources. So like, read this, read that, read this, read that. Follow the journalist, not the actual institution. If that makes sense.
So lean into it. Okay, interesting. That's really interesting.
And accept it, because like it's this idea of like, oh, that source is biased. Motherfucker, you're biased. Everybody's biased. You know, don't even.
Yeah, there's so much like talk about like fake news and that kind of stuff. It's a term that like has exploded in the last like few years, and it's just kind of interesting like how a journalist would want to navigate that moving forward. Like if somebody could just pull out this card in their back pocket, like, you know, we talk about soccer, like a red card is like fake news. You know, get out of here. What you're saying doesn't matter. You know, so it's just kind of interesting, especially for your job. You know, because it's probably more under fire.
How many times have we seen biased red cards?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So leaning to one of the more interesting questions I'm kind of wanting to ask is, dude, I want to know, what's the one story that completely changed the way you look at the world?
My sister. So I don't know if you've ever tried to do this, but like telling a family relative's story is really, really fun. It's awesome. Right. you feel like you know people. You feel like you're comfortable. With my sister, we shared a room. We had bunk beds. She was in the top bunk. I was in the bottom bunk.
Yeah.
She and I were closer physically than anybody else. Like, we were basically twins. I did an interview. I did my first interview with her for Who's Afraid. I sat down with her in her like college dorm, and I brought like a camera crew, and I brought microphones, and we sat down and we talked about her relationship to the hijab. Now, in my mind, I thought I knew what the story was. I thought I understood like how she thought about it. Like, I shared a space with this person my whole life. I wasn't even scratching the surface. The level of intimacy that you get as a journalist with your subject when you start asking questions about things, it's so powerful. And when you point it inwards, especially at people who you think that you know, wow. So she was like, right off the bat, was explaining to me how she felt like the hijab for her was this identity, and she had no idea what life was like without it, and how she wore it when she was like 4 years old, and how ever since then she's needed to reconcile with the fact that when people see her and they meet her for the first time, that's who she is to them. She is a manifestation of Islamic morality. It's a huge weight for her, and I didn't really understand or appreciate that until I got to asking her tough questions like, why do you wear it? And not just asking her tough questions, but there's a camera in the room. Yeah. She's wearing a microphone.
Changes a lot.
Right? And so she's not speaking to me anymore. She's speaking to the world. I think that to me changed me fundamentally, because then I think I really started to appreciate and understand that no matter how much we feel like we're close to something and we understand something, we might not even be scratching the surface. Wow. That's a really powerful thing to feel and to be sure of, because what does Islam teach us about people's character? About reserving your judgment, about accepting that you don't know as much as you think that you know. That's the best one.
So wild. You know what? I was expecting like this huge answer, this like crazy journey up a mountain to like some monk somewhere.
The mountain of reality.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, like, you know, it's surprising how like the most simplest of moments kind of shape who we are, you know, and our understanding of the world around us. I wanted to talk about this new story or this new series that you're working on called American
Muslims.
Yeah, that like is digging into this, and I saw a clip.
Plus, it's so good.
It's insane because, you know, you would kind of think that, you know, Muslims in America is somewhat of a new thing, but like you're digging into this history of how Islam and Muslims in America, contrary to belief, dates back to the founding of the country. Dude, like, wake us up. What's going on? Like,
bro, hold up. Let me tell you about how amazing this series is. These are stories that Muslims don't even know. Nobody knows these stories at all. The team behind this series is mostly comprised of historians and academics, right? When we talk about filmmaking, you and I are both storytellers. We're thinking about like, okay, does this narrative thread connect to this other thread? Yeah. These historians are thinking of like, how do we get access to these documents? How do we get to the original book that George Washington kept to like keep records from like this year to this year? Yeah. They're asking totally different questions. It's cool as hell, right? So most of the team, like one of the main historians behind it is this guy named Zahir Ali. He's incredibly talented. He wrote a book about Malcolm X. He did this story about like Muslims in Brooklyn, where he did like an audio archive of voices, of important voices in that community, as a way to preserve it for all time. So he's a major part of this project. And so what they're doing is so valuable because they're finding these stories, not by like Googling, not by checking encyclopedias, not trying to find these stories that sort of got forgotten. They're excavating stories that have never been told before about the way Islam was practiced and existed in America from the very beginning, and in some cases before it even existed.
Whoa.
You know what I'm saying?
What's an example that you can share to us?
There's so many. I mean, we could talk about the mosque on the prairie, the very first episode, the one that I'm a part of. But dude, there's like 6 episodes, and every single one of them is like, wow.
I saw a piece of that. Like, the first ever mosque in America wasn't in some inner city somewhere. It's in, who would have thought? And if you want to share that story.
Let's dig into this for a second.
Yeah.
The person who discovered that it was actually a mosque was a practicing Christian woman who was doing a research paper about her family history, in which she went in and she found these records and she found these interviews, and she heard them talking about Islam, and she was reading about them talking about Islam, and she was like, wait a second, my ancestors, and this was a mosque. What?
So she not only discovered that what they thought was a church was actually a mosque, and that her family was
it had been forgotten.
Right? Yeah,
it had been totally gone, and there was no actual story that actually tracked how this person went from Lebanon. This is a brand new story.
You know what it makes me think of, right?
What?
How much forgotten or lost Islamic history there might be in the North American continent.
Dude, could you imagine?
It's wild.
Let your mind go there just for a second. Could you imagine what stories about how Islam was practiced here, especially thinking about all of the African people that were stolen,
right?
And they were not allowed to have pen and paper. All of the documents that they produced, they had to sneak and do it in secret. And anything that was discovered, probably destroyed.
Especially like as you kind of get into history and different civilizations like coming and going, like you think about like how much lost knowledge there is between the creation and the destruction of long-standing civilizations like the Romans or the ancient Egyptians. Like I think about like how much lost knowledge or lost history might have or should have existed here, but didn't because of, you know, information being sought out and destroyed intentionally, right?
That's why I'm like even as an Egyptian, when people are like, Egypt is the oldest civilization, I was like, that we know of. And you know, even in the Quran, how many prophets were produced by Allah?
Right. So thousands. We know of hundreds, but thousands, yeah.
So there might have been a Native American prophet.
We don't know that.
There might have been a prophet in Antarctica. Who's to say?
Who's to say?
You know, insane. So that's what's so crazy about history is that, and especially as a Muslim, when you approach it as a Muslim, this idea that we don't even know, and that's actually knowing that is the key. Because the second we come in and we're like, no, actually, this is how I understand it. This is the way it is.
Dude, is that like, do you feel like
yourself from digging?
Do you feel like that's like your mission? Do you feel like that's like, if there was like a dream story for you to chase, would that be it? To uncover the hidden, deep-rooted Islamic history of where we live today in North America?
We're doing it. That's what the series is. It's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like we have one episode that released during this taping. Right. I think we have another one coming out. It may have just came out.
This will get released in 2025, so much after all the episodes are out.
Dude, I can't even begin to tell you how dope this series is. Like, for example, let me blow your mind. Did you know that palm trees exist in California because of a Muslim person?
No way. Like the palm trees, like
the idea,
the reason why people
because palm trees aren't native to California. They were brought there.
Really?
And who had the idea for it? Who brought the first palm tree?
You tell me.
A Muslim person who thought that reminded them of the Mediterranean Sea.
No way.
His name was Hajj Ali. And he was the first ever Marine to serve in this new unit called the Camel Corps. And it was this idea that there was going to be this unit that fought on camels. It doesn't exist these days, obviously, because now we have like tanks and shit. But he was like brought in from North Africa to head this thing. So and what's interesting is that there's a memorial for him in Texas, and they didn't know how to say his name. So if you go and you're looking for the story of Hajj Ali, you won't find it because the way it was written down, it was called High Space Jolly.
High Jolly.
That's what they thought his name was.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? So these are the stories that we're telling in American Muslims. We are uncovering stories that have never been told.
It's so insane.
That rewrites history about America as we know.
So you're telling me that the reason why we have palm trees in California is because of a Muslim?
And this is the thing that is so fascinating about the stories, that we're not saying Muslims were here, therefore we like exist as part of the thing. No, we're part of the reason America exists the way that it exists today.
SubhanAllah, man.
You know what I'm saying?
SubhanAllah. And then on top of all that work that you're doing, uncovering the Muslim identity and the Muslim history in America.
Uncovering American history.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Let me correct myself. Uncovering American history, you're also writing this book that I was able to read an excerpt on called Becoming Baba.
Nobody else has read an excerpt, by the way. You're the only one.
Yeah, I love you so much. And I love that because I was so activated by everything. It was such an I just related to it in ways I didn't expect.
Thank you.
And then it really woke me up because I felt like I was talking to someone that I grew up with, you know?
Thank you.
Talk about Becoming Baba, man. The impact of fatherhood on your definition of success in life.
I wouldn't put it up there, man. Like, this is the thing about fatherhood for me. It's like, it's a test.
You think so?
It's a test. And Islamically, we know that tests exist to make us stronger, to shape us, to encourage us to grow. For example, when someone prays God for strength, he doesn't just like hit you with steroids. He gives you challenges to make you stronger.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. I think that's what being a father is, right? That's how I've learned to embrace it. It's this idea that you will be humbled. This will hurt, but you will be a better man for it. And so for me, the joy of being a dad is overshadowed by the joy of getting the chance to sit down and reflect about being a dad.
What led you to it? I mean, a lot of people become fathers, but like you were inspired enough to write an entire book about it. What do you feel like is the main purpose you had to write this down and get something out there?
I love this question, dude, because this is like, I really, really, really wanted to write this book as a record for how I was experiencing something as I was experiencing it.
Oh, wow.
So I had the idea when my wife first found out we were pregnant. And you get to this in the book too. There's like this moment where we're really excited. We feel like we've been like bestowed with this opportunity. Yeah. It was like arrogant because what happened next? We were humbled. Rabbina said, or I'm not going to personify Rabbina, but what Rabbina did, or what happened to us because of Rabbina, was we were humbled and we didn't get the chance to have those babies. They didn't make it. They were twins. So there was a high risk birth. But that's when the idea for the book came out, because I was so arrogant. And I thought, oh, we're pregnant? We're going to make this happen. Like, this is going to be great. And I wasn't ready for that, like that strike of knowledge, of being like, you're actually just a passenger in this, man. If you feel like you're a part of a journey, sometimes you just got to embrace the fact that you're the luggage. You know what I mean? You're just being thrown on the conveyor belt. So this was like, that's when I felt like, okay, this book needs to be more than just like this transition. Yeah. It needs to be all like a culmination of all of the tiny little life lessons that one can learn to like manifest into what becomes a father. Yeah. In the context of America, in the context of being a Muslim, right. In the context of being Arab, in the context of being on the East Coast. What I learned the hard way, and people who get into the book will really enjoy this, is every time you feel like you know what's going to happen next, something else happens. And it's not just like, oh, it's a tragedy. There's no tragedy in the book. Wow. It's opportunities to learn. It's opportunities to grow. It's ways to get excited about like having like that big strike on the piece of marble that makes your chin. It's about having that big scar that forms who you are. Wow. There's layers of grief, but everything is wrapped in like a layer of being humble to the point where you really feel like you can learn alongside this character who is experiencing life, who wants what's best, who's trying to do what's best. Right. But what's best isn't necessarily clear. Yeah. So from the excerpt that I read from your book, a big part of your success in life, you say, is from your wife. Mm-hmm. I wanted to hear more about that, because you have such a beautiful and an interesting way of personifying it, poetically speaking on it, and I wonder where that comes from. My wife is crazy awesome. So she is not just like a Muslim American. She is a scholar. She has a master's in religion. She has the curiosity that would make the best journalist. And she and I relate a lot in the sense that we get excited about our questions and we get excited when we're wrong. because it makes us want to dig deeper, right? So she and I, in this, you get this in the book, so I don't want to cover it too much. But she came to me at a point in my life where I was beginning to wonder if there was a way to do things the halal way. I had gotten so used to like hiding things from my parents that I'd like formed two very perfectly siloed personalities, where one could exist as just being like the kid who liked to experience New York City, who got in trouble with the police sometimes, who would do a lot of, illegal stuff, hang out with like unsavory characters, do all that fun stuff. And then at the same time, when I would go home, I would like make sure my mom saw me pray, because I know how happy that made her. I would also be the one to like very loudly be like, MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah, like it was all practiced and it was all performative for her. Yeah. But I wanted to do that. I felt like I was doing it for her, to protect her from like the version of myself who she would be mortified to find out about. Right. So when I met my wife, her name's Mira, I got the first taste of what felt like a mix of both. Right? She was comfortable to sit on the couch and hit the blunt. But at the same time, she had a depth of knowledge and understanding of being curious about Islam that made me awestruck. And like the way that she was able to talk about, and she had the vocabulary that she had to talk about big ideas about like experiencing Islam in like a human way, because she has that master's in religion and philosophy, and she could really speak to these big feelings that I didn't even know I had. And she was able to do it in a way that I was like, I felt like I was meeting Islam for the first time in my life. Yeah. I mean, some people could watch a YouTube video and get that experience. For me, it needed to be a sexy girl with a blunt, So like, I don't know. It needs to happen for people in their own way. But for me, when I was put in her presence, I was terrified that she would like, at first I was like terrified that she would like see me for who I was, which was just somebody who like liked to talk about Islam, but also didn't necessarily feel it on a deep level. Like sometimes you go to Tarawih and you see people crying. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, how do I can't even relate to you when it comes to like faith, right? I was able to see that for the first time in somebody who looked like me, who talked like me, who could also like I said, hit the blunt, but also somebody who can cry when thinking about the grandeur of Allah. So I was like blown away. And then when we got to actually talking about it and we were like sitting down, and like I say in the book, I was sort of in like the perfect mental state for it, because we were tripping a little bit. And she was talking about like the Christianification of the way Islam is practiced in America.
Yeah, I remember that.
And she was talking about the way that people use vocabulary like Islam or Allah wants this out of you, or oh no, don't do that, Allah doesn't like that. And she was thinking, what a rudimentary way of thinking about Allah, right? Of this being like this person who has feelings. And she's like that. She was grossed out by that idea, and that's always how I felt about like what Allah wanted, because that's the language that I used when talking about Allah. Right. And so when I was thinking to myself, thinking about reflecting on how I might have done that, or how I might have also like fell into that trap. Sure. I saw in her an opportunity to meet Islam in a new way, and after that, it was just like, bam, 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 like. Actually, this concept of women needing to like pray in the back is actually introduced after the Prophet's death, and actually these like very strong feelings that people have about like praying right on time and doing all these things. This is for us, not for Rabbina. This is like so that we can be disciplined. So be merciful with yourself. She was like just like all these things that I felt pushed me away from the Deen. She was able to just pull a thread, unravel the sweater, and then bam, it exposed it for what it actually was. The beautiful part of Islam. And then after that, it was like a snowball effect. It was just like, SubhanAllah, man. You know that scene from Frozen? Where like she learns her powers and she's like, bam, bam, bam. That's what it felt like. Yeah.
So a lot of ways you compare yourself to like Elsa.
I was Elsa. I felt like I got access to this new power, and all of a sudden, everything felt free. Right? And the way she explained Islam as being like this open book of Allah being this concept for this bigger thing that we just don't have the language or the sight to see or to understand, and that this is our way of like accessing this greater like spiritual sides of ourselves. Changed my life forever.
And coming to the last chapter of this episode with you, we wanted to talk about being a Muslim journalist. I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people listening, who've always wanted to become a storyteller. You're someone who I attribute to my education and learning how to be a storyteller.
So crazy.
Dude, break down what I mentioned in the beginning, how there's a duality of storytelling being a science and an art. What's the secret sauce to making a great story, man?
So the first thing you do, or the first thing I do, is you identify the conflict. There's got to be tension. Without tension, you're just listing things that happened, right? So not every journalist does this, but I like to always have a form of tension in the story. So sometimes it's easy by like just finding conflicting points of view and seeing what happens when you mash them together. So this like tension of like this thing happened, but there's also this other thing, and then there's also this twist. You know, it's like trying to find those kinds of like those formats, right? So you start with a premise, and my premise, I always like to have it sort of familiar to people who are reading or going to be observing them, interacting with the media. So I have like this check to see if it's a good story, which is I ask the question, or will somebody see this and say to themselves, oh, I thought I knew this, but here's this other thing. Oh, maybe I misunderstood this thing.
Okay, interesting.
So you latch on to this thing that people are familiar with, and then you offer them this bait of being like, actually, you might be thinking about this wrong. Or here's this thing that you might want to understand a little bit better. So if it passes that test, I jump on the story. And then I try to find the tension. And once I find the tension, I know who I want to talk to. And then when I find out who I want to talk to, I take a little bit of notes. I do as much reading as I can of like what in other interviews they've done. Or I try to like see what videos they were in, so I get a sense of like who they are a little bit. But I don't like draft every like 40 questions that I want to ask. What I do is I sit there and I write like maybe 4 or 5 questions that I really want to know. And then you sort of just have it so you don't overwhelm yourself with the question process. And then when they start talking, you're not like waiting for, I used to do this mistake. I used to sit down and like wait for my turn to speak. And I have my next question. I'm thinking, how do I connect it to this next question? What I do instead is I just allow them the space to like freely speak their mind. And then I engage with what they're saying instead. So if we were doing an interview right now, and I was like saying this, it'd be like, engage what you're saying. Like give me an example of that. Or like, what does that mean? Or what does it like, go further with this thought that you have.
I hear you.
And then when you find an opportunity to move to the next thing, allow them to get there on their own, if that makes sense. So once you have all of that, like that interesting conversation where they don't just feel like they're answering questions, but they feel like they're actually revealing or, you know, testing their ideas against having to explain it to somebody else. Once you get there and you feel good about you have what their position is, then the interview is over. And I'm telling you, with this like approach, sometimes you don't ask any questions at all. Sometimes they just go through it because they know their story well. If you feel like people need to get like pushed along, you ask them questions about like, well, how does that make sense to you? Or that seems hard. Like, can you talk to me about like what makes that so hard? You know, you ask like simple questions like this about what they're saying. And then when you get there and you feel like you have enough, you take that in mind and then you reveal to your next person you're interviewing, well, this person just told me this and this and this. And this way you're not getting too much overlap. And you have them talk about what it is that is on your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Clear, yeah.
So if I interview person A and they tell me about like this traumatic experience and they actually weren't surprised, they weren't surprised, they expected it to happen. They're like, oh, so why did you expect it to happen? Well, you know, blah, blah, and then like there's this other twist. Oh, that other twist, I haven't heard that before. Can you like talk to me more about that? Like you just sort of like frame questions like that. And then you go to the next person and you say, well, person A said that this was like kind of predictable and they saw it coming. Do you see it that way too? And then they go, oh, you know, yeah, it's sort of like the trend in this neighborhood. Oh, there's other examples. Like what are some other things that you think I should know about?
Right.
Oh, you know, it's like you're sort of like connecting.
Makes clear sense. And how do you pull it all together?
So once you get everything transcribed, The AI tools are crazy. Sometimes you just like click on something and it just populates. But you got to double check, especially these days, because sometimes you get a word wrong, it's a catastrophe. So double check your transcripts. And then when you get your transcripts, you start with explaining it to yourself on paper. Mm-hmm. So I'll write an outline of what I think the story is based on all that I've learned. Yeah. So I'll say like, it started with this one thing, the cops didn't show up when they were supposed to, and then there's this other thing, and then there was like this other thing, and then despite this thing happening, something else happened, and then there's like a conclusion or something like that at the end. You know, you're looking for the tension points mm-hmm. where it doesn't. If you're ever saying like, and this happened, it's sort of like, where's the tension? It's mm-hmm. got to be like, this happened, but this happened, and then because that happened, this other thing happened. You know. So it's got to be like but and because is like sort of the key
lean towards tension,
connective tissues between mm-hmm. these ideas.
Yeah.
And once you have all of that, then you start to like actually just looking at what your outline is. Well, who answered this question better? Okay, so they're going to play this role. They're going to bop, bop, bop. And then who answered this question better? Bop, bop, bop. And then who answered that question better? Bop, bop, bop. And then...
then you got a story.
And then you got a story. And then you tighten the screws is what I call it.
Can you demystify making a career out of like journalism?
There's never a moment where you feel like you have a career in journalism. It's hard to get a job in journalism because there's so much like gatekeeping mm-hmm. and there's so many people out there who want to tell you what journalism is. And so it's really, really, really difficult to end up in a newsroom with the trust of like an editor.
Right.
Because you sort of need to come up with that editor. So I would say people who really badly want a career in journalism, you got to put yourself in community with journalists. Mm. You know, you got to like go to these events, ask them questions, show support to them, like make that your community. And then once you make that community, inshallah, if Rabbana wrote it for you, it's going to happen. But I would strongly recommend joining a group. Like there's like all these affinity groups. Like if you're African American, there's African American Journalist Associations where you don't necessarily need to be like a full-blown journalist to be a part of the member, but like you end up in community, you're in the chat room, you see them, you see the names, you get to know who these people are personally. For me, I like just found out about it recently, but if this was around when I was younger, it's this organization called Amija, which is specifically for American journalists of North African and Middle Eastern descent. Yeah. But there's ones for like South Asians. Yeah. And there's ones for like specifically people like from Iran. There's one specifically for people who are like from Palestine. Mm. Like they exist. So I think just like seek these organizations out, show up to their events. A lot of them have like award ceremonies. Mm-hmm.
Those platforms exist.
Yeah.
To get somewhere.
It's amazing, dude. We're like in the golden age.
Right. Oh, really? Do you think that this is the golden age of journalism?
Yes.
Wow. Why?
Don't listen to people who are being like, oh, fake news this, fake news that. Like, don't look at Tucker Carlson as being like the standard bearer of journalism. Then you're going to think that this like era sucks. Yeah. But there's Jamel Bowie. Wow. He's the kind of journalist where he has such a firm understanding of the history and the context. Yeah. Already, like naturally, subhanAllah, where he can like talk to you about cereal. Yeah. And make it seem like the most earth-shattering thing. Yeah. You know, that talent by itself is worthy of calling this era of like the golden age of journalism. But what I think is suffering right now is media literacy. The idea that people like Jamel Bowie need to compete with people like Tucker Carlson, those two people shouldn't exist in the same mind space, in my opinion. I think there's a real struggle, especially in minority like populations like ours, where institutionalized journalism has punished us for so long and has made us feel unrepresented, that there is this natural distrust. But at the same time, we need to also learn how to differentiate good journalism from bad journalism. Like music, you know, there's good rock and roll and there's bad rock and roll. There's good rap and there's bad rap. There's good pop and there's bad pop. It's the same thing with journalism. So I think don't write off whole organizations as being biased, because like I said, that doesn't exist. Even places like the New York Times, I've seen a lot of people be like, boycott the New York Times. They have people who are really bad and they say like these lies about us. True. The New York Times also employs the best journalists in the world. CNN. Oh, Jake Tapper, this, oh, it's so bad. Like they lie about us. CNN also has Clarissa Ward, one of the best wartime correspondents in the world. So I hate to see people shut themselves off and close doors when they really should be walking through those doors and getting closer to the journalists and getting better understandings of who these people are, what their personal biases are, and what kind of stories you want to read from those people. Because I wouldn't go to Clarissa Ward and Jamel Bowie for the same things. You know? Jamel Bowie is a scholar of African American history, and he will write the best stories that involve African American life. Clarissa Ward is a wartime correspondent who's interviewed the Taliban, who's interviewed Hamas, who's interviewed Netanyahu, who's interviewed Trump. I don't know if she's interviewed Trump, take that out. But she's interviewed all these like amazing people. She's been to Rafah during this conflict. No other journalist has been able to get there. CNN correspondent. How many people do you and I know who are like, don't watch CNN? It's a shame.
To end on a quote, Pythagoras, the triangle guy, is quoted saying, "Man, know thyself, then thou shalt know the universe and God." And a hadith of the Rasul said, "Whoever knows himself knows his Lord." As someone who professionally asks questions, do you feel like you know yourself?
No. I love those quotes. I also feel like who you are today is not who you are tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And so I worry about people who feel like they know themselves, because I don't believe you. I don't think anyone could really truly ever know themselves, because let's take this Becoming Baba, my book, for example. There's a really powerful scene in which the baby is born, and I have a panic attack for the first time in my life. I've never had a panic attack ever. When I got beat up by the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, I was cool. When I got arrested by the cops and they put me in prison, I was cool. When my baby was born, I was a puddle. The most you can know yourself is who you are right now, or who you are. You don't know who you're going to be in like a year. Would you say that you've known who you are 8 years ago, who you are right now?
I think every time I ask myself that question, I realized that who I thought I was so far off, right? So in hindsight, every version of me that felt solid and foundational was actually, only building me up to who I am today. Aymann Ismail, what a marathon. Thank you so much for being a part of Muslim Made. How do you feel?
I feel like I disagreed with you too much.
You think so?
I felt like I was
Absolutely
let me push back on that.
100%. I love that.
Yeah?
That's what makes me feel
Alhamdulillah.
amazing. I can't thank you enough for it. Hopefully you had as much fun as I did.
Yeah, me too.
This is...
Yo, watch American Muslims. Pre-order the book. Because this is coming out when? Like January?
Sometime. No. Probably March, April next year.
Okay, so the book should be coming out right around then. Yo,
amazing.
Buy this book, Becoming Baba. I promise you, it is not what you expect. I think you get a preview online, and the introduction is quite banger. I'm not gonna lie.
I can definitely certify that.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's the kind of book that you can read out loud to yourself and be like, "Whoa, this is new."
Awesome.
It's like nothing else out there.
I believe
and
you.
it's Muslim, and it's about New Jersey.
Go
and
support the boy.
It's about parents, and it's about becoming a parent, and it's about appreciating all of the things that you didn't know when you were younger.
Amazing. So that's been Muslim Made.
Did I plug
Thank you so much again. Yeah, hell yeah. Guys, assalamu alaikum. This has been Muslim Made with Aymann Ismail. We will see you on the next one.
Inshallah.